All right, welcome everyone. This is our fourth session in DM150, and today we're just going to be discussing a bit of more marketing collateral or other ways that you can go about discussing and showing off your product and your service as well. So there's going to be a few bullet points that we can go through about what we're going to learn today, just 6 of them. But in general, we're going to discuss newsletters and articles, some good ways to write them. There's going to be a structure of an advertorial. And an advertorial, you're going to be hearing this word a lot, is a combination of the word advertisement and editorial. So, an editorial, again, is this type of piece of writing that discusses something. And an advertorial combines the aspects of an advertisement. So, you're going to be discussing the product. Essentially, you're going to be advertising your product too. Now, the nice one that we're going to do is we're going to write your own advertorial. Of course, not right away, but you are going to write your own advertorial for a project too. So this should help out quite a bit with figuring out how to do project two. We're going to talk a bit about email marketing. And then we're also going to figure out how you can set up content with your email for your marketing plan. And of course, I think these are always good to review as well, the do's and don'ts of email marketing. I do know that sometimes with some emails, they're very spammy and I kind of hate getting them if I signed up for a newsletter. Other times they have some cool information that I really enjoy as well. So there's a lot of do's and don'ts and we can discuss them together. Great. So newsletters, excuse me, let that him in. So newsletters have been a way to publish information and discuss a product, and they've been around for quite a while. And of course, newsletters nowadays can be in two different forms because we're in the digital era now. You can have them on your phone, you can have them on your computer, or you can have them on your actual printer, or excuse me, a hard copy of them too. But in general, a newsletter is a publication around a certain topic that has a regular basis publishing schedule, meaning that you're going to have a monthly newsletter, quarterly. I wouldn't say a daily newsletter, that would be pretty intense, but you might even have a weekly newsletter as well. But it's just something that will discuss a topic that is going to be consistent. And now, if we go back to last week, Saturday, if you remember it, one of the key factors of having a successful business was what word? Was the consistency word, right? So a newsletter is a really cool way to show off that you have some type of consistency with your product or your bait or your business or whatever you're working with. So consistency is a very nice aspect. And if you're publishing a weekly or monthly newsletter that is always pretty solid, that's a good way to reinforce your core values and all that good stuff too. Cool. So what are the benefits of creating a newsletter? Well, you can have linear delivery of information via stories, meaning you can tell information about your product or your business or what you're doing in a more storied format. So instead of just kind of unloading a bunch of information on someone randomly, you might be able to use a newsletter to deliver that information in a bit more of a mature manner. You can portray high quality. Some newspapers some newsletters are very high tech with a lot of cool designs and logos. You can definitely brand your newsletters as well. So if you're going for a very serious, maybe like you have a watch company and you're going for a very serious type of like cadence and you want to have it all minimal and like black and gray, your newsletter can reflect that as well with very solid colors, not too much of a difference in the black and gray colors, and some cool fonts. Excuse me. And then the third bullet point here is that it's tactile with its ability to maintain its presence, meaning that if someone signs up for a newsletter for monthly and they get it, they're going to read it. So they want to make sure that the newsletter is consistent if you do show consistency with your newsletter. And then that will help with showing off, again, your business and your product. This is an interesting point that we can look at as well, is that we're going to have different customer types for the most part, unless you're selling a very specific niche product. But for the most part, you're going to be able to create the different newsletters as well. And even if you're selling a niche product, the different customer types can be someone who is very new to your product and wants to learn more about it, and then someone who is already knowing about your product and would like to know more about your story. Cool. Let me make sure. Okay, I'm still recording. Great. Now, here's an interesting one with the timing. You got to determine how often your newsletter will be produced, and again, if you once you determine that time frame, you're going to want to be very consistent with it, as that consistency is key for showing off your brand and your product. And then if you see here, a gardening store may send out a quarterly newsletter as the seasons change. And that makes a bit more sense, right? Because you might have just 4 newsletters that are packed with a lot of information, of course, because it's only 4 times in a year. But each newsletter can reflect the change in the season. So maybe you would have a winter newsletter, a spring, summer, and fall, and so forth. So newsletters can also be very useful and beneficial depending on the timing you send them out as well. And again, this is up to you to discuss with yourself and then others and me as well if you're trying to determine if you want to write a newsletter. But again, you want to make sure that you get ahead of some seasons. So if you had a plowing company, you should probably send out your newsletters and information about your plowing company, snow plowing company, before winter comes in, right? You don't want to be sending out in the middle of winter when everyone's already, stuck in with all the snow. So what you could do is send them out maybe at the end of fall, maybe October, November. You would have a newsletter occurring, and then that would show off your company a bit more. Similar to this one, you want to make sure that your landscaping business has their newsletters out in early spring because people are going to be making decisions already during the spring about who they want to do their landscaping. And again, this word, you're probably going to get sick of it eventually, but consistency is key in all of these scenarios. So your content should be consistent. Your your layout should be consistent as well. People are very used to how things are worked. So if you throw a different newsletter layout each time at them, it will be very confusing. If you want to use different layouts, you can use it for different customers. Maybe you would have a layout that's a bit more simpler for a new customer, but for your returning customers, you might have a more complex information fueled newsletter. And again, the copywriting techniques, which again was the A idea, the 4 U's, and the 4 P's. Sorry, I forgot as well. But there's a few of them there that you could use to figure out the newsletter contents. And those are always useful to figure out what you should write. And again, these are just some general tips for your contents. But again, talk a bit about the customer, what they want to know. Maybe you could provide extra tips and techniques for their lives to be easier. Again, if we're using the example of that snow plowing company, you might give some tips on how to dig your car out, or maybe how to turn your car into snow so it doesn't get stuck. I know I could have used some tips during this winter because I got stuck all the time. So there's lots of different ways you can go about talking to customers and what they want to hear. And again, this point of the newsletter is to get people to buy your products and get more customers, but you don't want to say overtly to say, buy my product to make your life easier. You can always list out reasons why their life might be difficult and then have your product in there as an easy way to fix that too. Now, here's another piece of information that to think of for your newsletter is your tone and style. Again, I mentioned this with the watch company as well. If you want to have a very serious company with a minimal design, your newsletter should reflect that. If you're a very family or like friendly company, for instance, if you consider customers like family rather than customers, you can have that in your tone and style. If you're very scientific and you just want to list out information and details, you can have that style too. So again, monitor your customers and who you want to target, and then make your tone and style respectable for that too. If you have older customers, you might not want to use newer tones and styles as they might not pick up on it. And again, you can always think of that too. Maybe older customers prefer the printable newsletters or ones that are sent as occurred to ones that are sent via email. Awesome. And again, your newsletter should always do that important one called the call to action, right? Again, what we want the customer to do is to do something whenever we're working on these. So the customer should either give feedback, apply, buy something, or respond to the newsletter as well. Maybe you have a discussion forum like we do with our participation things, and maybe people can go on and discuss what they enjoy and what they liked about the product. Excuse me. Sorry, everyone. Great. And again, newsletters are dependent on your business and how you want to word them too. But in general, you want to make sure that these are easy to read and someone that might not be too familiar with it would be able to pick it up again. So you got to also think about, okay, if you have a monthly newsletter, for instance, for me, if I read something and a month later, I probably forgot a good portion of it or how the layout was. So you're going to need to try to keep the same layout and keep the information a bit more clear for me because I'm going to be doing so much in between the times that I read these that I might forget a good bit. Make sure all your photos are good quality, which I think is pretty explanatory. And then, of course, professional designer to create your template. That's always good, but there's also DM140 and 141 here at CSI, which is good for showing off image design. So you could definitely become professional designers yourself too here. Awesome. So now the newsletter editing might take a while, but I would say definitely have someone as a different pair of eyes to proofread what you're doing. And of course, it is a big undertaking, so make sure you delegate your work properly. Now, how would you figure out how to distribute your newsletters?
Morning.
Oh, sorry. Morning. Welcome. Cool. Awesome. So, just as a reminder, I am recording this, so for those who might have joined a bit later, you can always rewatch it once I post it. But you didn't miss too much so far. The newsletter distribution, again, you can either use mail or emailing. If you look at websites and you scroll down to the bottom of them and it says add your email for... Actually, I can pull up an example of that in a bit. You can send out your newsletters like that. You can actually send them out via mail or at partner locations, or you can post them on your website as well. There's lots of different ways to distribute it. And I think doing a mixture of physical and digital is probably the best because people, I would say you would reach the max amount of people there in that fashion. Awesome. So advertorials. So again, there's a video here that you can write, and I might post this to the discussion board as well. Let me go over where you can find that link again. If you go into your supplemental resources at the home page of our DM150, and you go ahead and open it up under session 4, you'll see advertorials, how to write them, and why they're awesome. And you should be able to watch it from there. If that link doesn't work, let me know, and I can fix the link. Let me pull this up again. Oh, I'm sorry, everyone. Great. So advertorial, again, an advertorial is a name given to some content that replicates the editorial style, again, of a newspaper and magazine, something that is printed, typed up. And in general, the reason that it replicates it is how the font works, the title, the way that the text is formatted, and column width. And essentially, though, it's an editorial that's discussing your product, so it's also an ad. So you're pretty much just going to be making an editorial about some topic, but instead of it being a random topic or anything, it's going to be about a product that you're trying to sell. Yep, so an advertorial, again, is an advertising promotion, feature, or sponsor. Let's see here. Sorry, everyone, let me add you in. And again, let's see here. You're going to want to make sure that the you're going to want to make sure that you make the user aware that they are kind of looking at an ad or anything like that, so that they are looking at this advert that's a bit longer. And just because of that, you want to make sure that, I think that's more helpful because it makes it so that the customer or the user you're reaching doesn't get angry at you or anything like that. They don't get annoyed. It's just an ad. So again, if you have some type of advertisement feature or sponsored at the top of the advertorial that you're making, that will be a very good design. And just to help showcase what this really is, sorry everyone, thank you for your patience here. Great. So if I pull this up here, so this would be kind of like an advertorial, right? So these are just examples online, but you can see here, if you look at the very top of this image here, it says advertisement feature. And then up here, well, it doesn't really say it, but you know, probably by now from those commercials as well, that these are advertisements. This one over here is an advertisement as well. If you look at the top right, it says promotion on it, so people know that it is an advertisement. But you could see that this discusses some type of product in the format of a newspaper. So for your project 2, which we'll get into later, you're going to actually be making your own cool advertorial, and we can discuss how to do that and ways to do it as well. But it will be interesting to figure out ways to put together a proper advertorial. Cool. Is there any questions so far? Okay. So again, these are examples of advertorials, and I'll have more provided for us later on. No thanks. Awesome. Let's see. Oh, sorry, Zeno. I see you there. Great. So again, if you want more clarification with advertorials or more examples, just let me know. But again, I think it's very good with those other examples to put advertisement feature at the start and what you're selling at the start so that people who are reading it will know, okay, well, I know it's an advertisement, but I'm going to keep going because I'm interested in it. Figure out what the story is going to be about. And then again, you're going to want your style and tone, similar to what we did with the newsletters, to be consistent in these advertorials and to mimic what you want your brand to be like. Let's see here. Great. So good photography is always important. Have good photos. There's going to be some form of story that you're going to make rather than selling the sale. And again, the story is kind of a broad term. You don't need to say, you don't need to make up a story about your watch or anything either. But you could say stuff that if you're trying to sell a wristwatch and you're talking about how it makes you look better and more professional and like commanding in a sense, you want to focus on those aspects rather than saying, oh, this watch does this and that. It has all these settings. You're not so much talking about the sale itself rather than what the sale will do for the person. If you have any statistics, that's always good too. Expert third parties are always good, and we can talk about how to quote and cite them as well. But having proofs and scientific backing of your things, I mean, as scientific as it can be, that's always helpful for your advertorial as well. Here's a really good one. Don't include any prices. That's always important because that might turn some people off the advertorial. And again, use some solid photography. This activity is what we're going to be doing for the participation there. So we can discuss that later on. But in general, you're going to pick a product or service that you would like and then create a small little advertorial. And again, this is going to be more of a storied product. And I'll show some examples in the participation form of what this would look like. But for now, while we're going through this, why don't you try thinking about some products or service that you can think of that would fit an advertorial. And again, an advertorial in the most basic sense is an editorial, which is a storied information piece, but is also an advertisement. Great. So these email marketing tips is also in the supplemental links, and I would say review those, excuse me, because those are always useful to help out with other forms of sharing your information. But in general, what is email marketing? But what this is you're sending emails to raise awareness about your product, your brand, your services, what you have to offer. For instance, if you are a consulting agency or if you're selling consulting packages, you might have some meetings or you might even have some Zoom calls that you're hosting and stuff as well, and you can send them out in emails. Now, again, you don't want to do unsolicited marketing because that is illegal. What that means is that you can't just send emails to random addresses all the time. So usually your email marketing will be by people who agree by their own admission to get emails from you. And now, where do you see the agreement forms? Well, if you're ever making an account, you might see something at the bottom with a checkbox that says like, I agree to get emails from xyz.com. And once you click that, this is how you can do your email marketing with the person. Now, why would you want to use email marketing? I would say that emails are probably the one of the most fantastic ways to send and get information to people. I would say a majority of people, well, if you're not, you might want to start too. You're probably checking your email quite a few times every day just to see what's going on. I know I have my email open most of the day just in case anything comes in. So emails are a great way to reach audiences that you might otherwise not reach because they are in different aspects or parts of the world as well. And again, you don't need to go crazy on these emails like a newsletter or anything like that too. You don't need to contain a ton of information. You also don't want to spam the person with a lot of emails because you'd probably get blocked if that happened. But you want to provide some professional, branded, like your product should be, and well-written, consistent emails that your customer could read in order to learn more about your information and whatnot. You might be able to determine the type of customer you have as well. If they're a newer customer, you might send them regular emails about your product and information sessions about your product. And those are all interesting ways to brand yourself. See here. There's a lot of database tools that can help, such as MailChimp and Constant Contact. And that will be very beneficial to use as that helps maintain the consistency required for these. And these database tools, without getting too intensely deep into them, can always create professional templates for you. You can have your logo and your tagline and all your headline stuff as well associated with those database tools. You can have your email list. So if you have your customers' emails lined up and they're ready to go with those emails, you can send it out to them very easily. And the most important thing is that you can integrate these tools with analytics on your website. And that's a very fancy way of saying you can track the attention that you're getting, how many people are reading or clicking on things, and other stuff like that, which is very important to figure out if what you're doing is actually working. So if you see that your emails are getting a lot of clicks and that people are reading them, then you should continue with that. And if you see that you don't have too many, you might want to change your strategy up. Great. You can also link these tools with your social media platforms and use some more tools and references to help distribute your content. Excuse me. Now, figure out at the start here, and I think this is a reoccurring theme that we have with these items, but figure out what you want to achieve with these emails and what you want to do. You got to be very specific with the outcomes you want to achieve. And then, of course, the outcomes that you actually get, you want to compare that with what you want, with what you're getting. So, for instance, if you're sending out emails to try to get people to buy your product more, see if it's actually getting people to buy your product. If you want to send out emails to your mailing list in order for people to join more information sessions, see if people are joining the information sessions as well. So again, your end goal in all the time is to sell your product. But if you do goals that aren't completely related to getting your product sold, you might attract more customers. You might just have a better time reaching out to more people and stuff like that as well. Segmenting your list is a fancy way of saying determine which customers you're trying to get to. For instance, you might have customers that just signed up, so you have them in a specific area of your database that you send, "Hi, welcome to my company. We are having an information session tomorrow." Or you might have people that have been veterans of your company that are already there, and you will send them different emails that's just about more information about your products or upcoming products. Deciding what you're going to say is always crucially important. And again, the most important thing here is that you have a good subject line. So whenever you get an email, let's see here. Maybe I shouldn't show off my email just yet. But if you remember, you have who sent it and then the subject line and then a bit of text, like a little snippet of what's inside of it. But the subject line is what everyone reads. So you want to make sure the subject line that you're doing is a very important and crucial one, and that it will attract the attention of someone who is just looking at your email. Again, you want to avoid the junk or the spam that's here. If you use certain words that might shift you into the junk box, you should avoid it, including password, free or stock or like a new deal or anything like that as well might land you up into the into the spam. Also, make sure it's not in all caps or you're using exclamation marks. You don't want to have, because usually Gmail will just filter that as spam. So try to make your subject line something that is straightforward to the point, but it's also not would not be considered spam by someone. Some And again, create solid headlines and create your newsletter items or your email items with some important information at the start. Because again, people want to read it and want to understand what is going on quickly. They're not too patient anymore. Make sure you never forget your call to actions. What is the point that you're using this email for? Again, we mentioned earlier, okay, do I want the customer to buy something by reading this email? Or do I want them to just share some information? Or do I want them to do this? So make sure that you have your call to action set up so that you know how to finish your email as well. Remember that customers that you have are there to help share your brand as well. Excuse me. Some in my throat. And again, this goes back to the first session where we talked about how if you wear a club uniform for a soccer club, you're kind of sharing the brand of that soccer club. If you're drinking Red Bull or Gatorade, you're sharing that brand. If you're getting these emails and you're sharing the emails or the information in it, you're also sharing this company's brand as well. Now, sometimes if you add links into emails, it might be a bit dangerous because there's a lot of danger around phishing links and stuff like that as well. But make sure that if you are with customers that you are reputable and they trust you as well, you could probably add links into those. If you're sending emails to new customers or potential customers, I wouldn't include links as Gmail might filter that out as spam. But if you do want to make sure to add links, make sure they're secure, make sure that they work, and make sure that they don't look a bit fishy. And again, very similar to the newsletter, figure out when you want to send your emails. Do you want to do them daily? That might be a bit intense. You might want to do them weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, annually, whatever you want to do. But make sure whatever you pick, you're consistent with it, and you figure out that and that you figure out how it's working for your product. You also don't want to send emails in an erratic manner. You don't want to send 3 really quick emails and then none after that. Consistency is key to maintaining a solid customer base. Again, this is straightforward, but make sure you don't have any typos. Make sure that you have zero tolerance for any errors. Make sure it makes sense. Get a lot of people to read it, do some editing on it, and figure that out. Make sure you create a schedule or anything like that as well to keep track of how you're setting out your emails. Again, these are up to personal preference, whatever works for you. But again, if whichever route you pick, make sure you're consistent and on time with it. The database tools that we talked a bit earlier, and I don't want to delve into them too deeply just yet because the projects and stuff like that are more involved with kind of this large scale ideas and concepts. But what we're going to do, some of these database tools can monitor who opened the email, where the clicks are getting in, what type of information work. See if there's any hard bounces, meaning that there is no email that it reached. And then are you reaching that goal that you talked about earlier? Are you getting the sales that you wanted? Are you hitting all the customers that you needed to hit? And then again, always do the testing. So figure out some different call to actions if some are not working. Again, maybe get a call to action that's different than just I want the customer to buy the product. Maybe you want the customer to send out some information, forward the email, or click on a link to sign up for a program or anything like that as well. And then that is always useful. If you have weekly, you could even do, instead of just doing it every day, you could do it twice a week or anything like that as well. Maybe you'll do a Monday, Friday. Maybe you'll do a Thursday, Friday email or anything like that too. Figure out what works for your group. If you are selling drinks or like liquor online or anything like that as well, you might have emails that get sent out on a Friday because that's when the partying happens and stuff like that as well. If you are selling stuff for work-related tools, you might send out something on Sunday evening because that's when people might be looking for those. So try to figure out what works for your customers and how you're going to be sending out those emails as well. Awesome. Let me